Picture this: a machine that weighs more than 500 African elephants. Something so big, its wings physically bend nearly 4 meters in the air, like they're breathing. Something with a bar, a shower, room for over 800 people, and in an emergency, it can empty every single one of those seats in 90 seconds flat. Now here's the part nobody tells you. This flying miracle almost bankrupted the company that spent 20 years building it. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand how the most advanced passenger jet ever built became one of aviation's strangest cautionary tales. This is the Airbus A380.
Let's start with the numbers, because they genuinely don't feel real. Fully loaded, the A380 can weigh close to 575 tons. That's not a typo. That's the weight of a fully loaded freight train, dozens of cars long, somehow convinced to leave the ground. Its wingspan stretches almost 80 meters, nearly the length of a full football field, tip to tip. Stand it on its tail, and it's about 24 meters tall, roughly an 8-story building. But the size isn't even the strangest part. It's the shape. Every other jumbo jet in history, including the legendary Boeing 747, only has a partial upper deck, a little hump at the front. The A380 is the only airliner ever built with a full second floor running the entire length of the plane, nose to tail. It's not just a plane, it's a flying apartment building.
And that second floor changes everything about what this aircraft can carry. In its densest certified configuration, the A380 can hold up to 853 people. Let that sink in. That's more people than live in some small towns, all sealed inside one aluminum tube, about to cross an ocean together. Airlines rarely push it that far. Most configure it for 450 to 600 across several cabin classes. But the fact that 853 is even possible tells you how radical this design really was. And it wasn't just add more chairs. Engineers had to redesign floor loading, emergency exits, oxygen systems, cabin pressure, air conditioning from scratch, because nothing this size had ever needed to move this many people at once. So here's the first twist. You'd assume something this heavy, this packed with people, would barely be able to fly across a country, let alone an ocean. You'd be wrong.
Despite everything we just described, the A380 can fly up to roughly 9,000 nautical miles, about 15,000 kilometers, without stopping to refuel. That's enough to connect Singapore to Los Angeles, or Dubai to New York in a single haul, lasting over 17 hours. It cruises at around 900 kilometers per hour, at altitudes of 12 to 13 kilometers, where the air is thin and drag drops dramatically. But here's the detail that surprises even pilots. The longer the flight, the more efficient this aircraft becomes. Takeoff is brutally expensive in fuel terms, but once the A380 settles into cruise, it becomes remarkably economical per seat. It was never built for short hops. It was built specifically to punch through oceans without stopping, and that's exactly where it shines. To make that possible, the A380 carries an almost unbelievable amount of fuel, up to 320,000 liters. At full tanks, that fuel alone weighs around 250 tons. Nearly half the entire aircraft's takeoff weight is just fuel. That fuel doesn't just sit there either. It's stored across multiple tanks in the wings and fuselage, and onboard computers are constantly shifting fuel between them mid-flight to keep the aircraft perfectly balanced. Like the plane is adjusting its own posture
thousands of times over a single flight. A full refuel can take up to 3 hours and cost more than $200,000. And yet, because it's spread across so many passengers, the fuel burned per person per kilometer can rival much smaller jets.
Now here's the moment that changes how you'll see this plane forever. If you've ever flown on an A380 and glanced out the window during turbulence, you may have noticed something unsettling. The wingtips visibly flexing, rising and falling by up to 4 meters. Your instinct is to panic. Don't. That flex is deliberate. If the wing were built rigid, every bump of turbulence would slam stress straight into the point where the wing meets the fuselage, wearing down the metal until it eventually cracked. So Airbus's engineers designed the wing to absorb that energy instead, bending under load, spreading the stress across the entire span. During certification, engineers pushed those wings to 150% of their normal operating limit. In testing, they bent the wingtip more than 7 meters upward before intentionally breaking it, just to know exactly where the limit was. So next time you see those wings flexing at 40,000 feet, that's not the aircraft struggling. That's the aircraft doing precisely what it was engineered to do.
Here's where the story starts to turn. For all its brilliance, the A380 ran into a problem no engineer could design around. Most of the planet's airports simply couldn't handle it. It needed reinforced runways, widened taxiways, bigger gates, and specially built double-decker jet bridges. When it entered service, dozens of major airports had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars just to physically accommodate this one aircraft. Even today, only around 130 to 150 airports on Earth can receive an A380 without restrictions. Think about that. Airbus built the most capable long-haul aircraft in history, and then had to wait for the rest of the world to catch up to it. And building even one of these things is its own feat of logistics. A single A380 takes roughly 3 years from the first component to final delivery. The wings are built in Wales. Fuselage sections come from Germany and France. The tail is assembled in Spain. All of it gets shipped by sea and along specially constructed routes to Toulouse, France for final assembly. In total, one A380 is made from more than 4 million individual parts, supplied by around 1,500 companies across the globe. It might be one of the most complex peacetime engineering projects humans have ever coordinated. But complexity means nothing if it isn't safe, and this is where the A380 quietly proved itself. By law, any airliner must be capable of a full evacuation in under 90 seconds, with half its exits assumed to be blocked. In 2006, Airbus tested this with 853 people on board, in dimmed lighting, with several emergency exits deliberately sealed shut. The entire aircraft emptied in 78 seconds, 12 seconds under the legal limit, with the largest number of passengers ever tested on a single aircraft. And despite 4 enormous engines and a fuselage the size of a building, the A380 turned out to be one of the quietest large jets ever built. Airports actually reported fewer noise complaints after it entered service.
So by now, you're probably thinking, how does something this advanced, this safe, this quiet, this loved by passengers nearly destroy the company that made it? Here's the twist we opened with. The A380 program was originally budgeted at around 11 billion euros. By the mid-2000s, it had ballooned past 18 billion, buried under production delays, wiring complications, and the sheer difficulty of coordinating parts built across an entire continent. Airbus had bet on a future where global air travel would keep funneling through giant central hub airports, big planes moving huge numbers of people between a handful of major cities. But airlines and passengers moved the opposite direction, towards smaller, twin-engine jets flying direct point-to-point routes between hundreds of smaller cities, skipping the hubs entirely. In the end, Airbus delivered only 251 of these aircraft, a fraction of what they'd hoped to sell. Production officially ended in 2021.
And maybe that's the real lesson buried inside this machine. The A380 isn't a failure of engineering. It might be one of the greatest engineering achievements in aviation history. It failed because it was built for a version of the future that never quite arrived. Sometimes the most brilliant thing you can build is also the one the world isn't ready for yet. If you want the next 10 facts about the A380, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. And if you want 20 facts about the aircraft that came before it, the legendary Boeing 747, tell me down below.